You're listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. It's about time that we invest more in our financial literacy and work towards building generational wealth. If you think you're ready to do the same, then you've come to the right place. Alex, Marlon, y'all ready? Let's get this bread.
What's good, everybody? It's Alex Comunio here, and we are back with episode 30 of the Money Monopolizers podcast. And I'm here with the co-host, Marlon Walls. Marlon, how you doing today, bro?
Just another day, bro. I don't know. I'm doing good today, though, honestly. Just got out of church, ready to get this episode out the way. It's Super Bowl Sunday. We getting ready to have us a Super Bowl party. I got this afterwards, but ready for this episode, though, and we're ready to knock it out. How about you, bro?
Oh yeah, we got a great episode for y'all today. I'm doing good. Finally, January is over. It's a long month.
I swear
bro. That month was like, bro, that month was like, it felt like a year in that month. But you know, it's over now. We on the next one. I'm gonna keep making moves. Business is thriving. So you know that's good. Still trying to find a deal. For over here in San Antonio, it's, few and far between right now, but that's part of the game. So, it is what it is.
The market is honestly like super saturated right now. So I don't know, something's going to change soon. I was talking to one of our agents in San Antonio yesterday about it. Like it's just rough right now. It's a lot of, we was just talking to a lot of, she was talking about how there's so many new investors in the market, and like everybody's willing to overpay tremendously for different deals, and it's few and far between to find a good one right now.
Oh, for real, it's like, bro, all these newbies in the in the market. It's like, damn, like, I mean, yeah, it's good that more and more people are getting into it, but like, bro, y'all messing it up for or like not y'all, but like a lot of them messing it up for everybody. Like, bro,
right.
I'm trying to, put a bid in on a deal, and there's somebody willing to pay $15K above what I'm willing to pay. I'm like, bro, all right, I guess you're willing to come out of pocket for everything. So I ain't willing to.
School of hard knocks for them. They finna see real soon.
They're gonna learn the hard way, and then they're gonna be right where we at. But that's just kind of how it goes right now. So 2020 is like, bro. I mean, we only been in this for about 2 years now, but the market, this is like, I don't know. This got to be like the hottest the market has really ever been. Like, it's ridiculous right now. So right now, I'm just really definitely trying to diversify my investments into other industries so that, I can, still be active and still be making moves while I'm young and have that ability to take advantage. So that's what I'm really focusing on right now. Getting into 2020, I'm trying to get into as many investments as possible. And I'll talk more about those as they happen. I don't want to speak on nothing until it happens. I don't like doing that. But so let's get into this episode, though. So we got a great episode for y'all today. I say great a lot more than I usually did because this is like my favorite topic to talk about. Marlon knows this is like, for me, I don't know, taxes is like it's something that everybody has to pay. It's something that everybody needs to know about. Taxes are your largest expense. So, I mean, learning how to eliminate that and get, lower your tax burden is super, super important. So that's why I'm such a big advocate on taxes, especially like eliminating taxes. Hopefully the IRS ain't listening, but
hey, everything we're saying is legal. So nothing we're saying is gonna be illegal. So
yeah,
listen, they want to, but
yeah, facts. I don't need an audit though. Y'all, I pay my tax. But yeah, let's get into this episode though. So before we do get into it, I do want to. I think so the episode is pretty much we're gonna be talking about why the middle class pays the most in taxes, right? But before we do get into that, I do want to talk and explain go briefly over the history of taxes to really understand why they are the way they are, right? So I know a lot of people hear that and like, oh my God, this dude's going to talk about the history of taxes. All right, I heard enough already. So, probably some people clicking off right now, but that's cool too. Shout out to you if you really do listen to this part that we're going to talk about right now, and just let's kind of talk about that. There was a quote everybody has heard it, but most people don't know who it's from. By Benjamin Franklin. He said, "In this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes." Right? Taxes is something nobody can avoid. Doesn't matter what you are, doesn't matter what you do. Something you can't avoid. However, there are ways that you can lower your tax burden, and you can essentially, limit some of your taxes, right? You can't eliminate all your taxes, but some of them you can. And we'll talk about that. So we're going to focus on this episode primarily on income taxes. We're not going to necessarily talk about the other taxes. And speaking of the other taxes, like, people got to understand, I'll just mention this real quick before we get into the history. People got to understand that taxes are either regressive or progressive, right? So regressive taxes are just pretty much any taxes that are applied across the board to everyone, right? So these are the kind of taxes that usually take a harder toll on those that earn a lower income, because it's a larger percentage of their income they're paying the taxes, right? So, for example, sales taxes are considered to be regressive, especially on like food and medicine, because obviously it doesn't matter how much you're making, you're still going to be paying the same price of taxes on your food or your medicine or whatever. Property taxes are also considered regressive because, it doesn't matter what county you live in, you're still paying that same tax rate. If a rich person lives in a county and a poor person lives in a county, they still pay that same tax rate. Now, the amount of taxes they'll pay is different based on the size of the house or the value of the house, but they're still paying that same tax rate. Sin taxes are regressive, like on tobacco and those kind of things. All those are regressive taxes because they're applied to everyone the same, but they hit the lower income people harder, right? So that's regressive taxes. The other type of taxes is progressive taxes, but they're pretty much taxes that, well, as you earn more income, you pay more in taxes, right? So income tax is considered a progressive tax. So income tax is the tax you pay on earning income, which is what we're going to focus on in this episode. And real quick, let's just take a quick minute just to talk about the tax bracket real quick, because a lot of people don't really understand how the tax brackets work. And I think we've never talked about taxes before, so this could be a good time to explain kind of how tax brackets work, right? So as of 2020, there are 7 tax brackets, right? You have 10%, 12%, 22%, 24%, 32%, 35%, and 37%, right? So a portion of your salary falls into each bracket, right? So, for example, if you make $60,000 a year, then you fall in the 22% tax bracket. Now, a lot of people will think, and this is not even their fault, it's just because of lack of financial education. A lot of people think that if you make $60,000 and you fall in the 22% tax bracket, that you pay 22% of your $60,000 salary to taxes. No, you don't. You pay the first 0 to 9,700 at 10%, and then from 9,700 to 39,475, you pay at 12%. And then from 39,476 to 60,000, you pay at 22%. So it kind of falls into buckets, and that's essentially what progressive income tax is. And then, you wouldn't pay you wouldn't get into the 24% income tax bracket until you're making $84,201. So, or anything above $84,201. So that's essentially how tax brackets work.
Man, you got me really thinking about like regressive versus progressive taxes, because I think everybody, when they think taxes, they're thinking progressive. Like if they saying tax the rich, they're thinking about increasing the progressive taxes. But what people don't ever really talk about, I think this goes to that groupthink phenomenon you always talk about. Nobody really ever targets regressive taxes or like even really talks about those. But I know that would probably be much more effective if you like were to implement something that to target regressive taxes in general. Like, I know, speaking for myself personally, when I was growing up, I don't know about for millionaires when they go try to buy a candy bar for $1 and then they get that eight extra cent added on for taxes. Like if you in Texas, I know it hit real different for me when I walk in the store with my $1. Like, bro, I'm about to give me this Kit Kat today. I get to the cash register and they say, hey, that'll be $1.08. It said 99 cents on the on the thing, on the label over there. So now I got to take that walk of shame back out to my mom. Mom, can I get 8 more cents? They said that those taxes made it be $1.08 instead.
Hey, your mom should have gave you that $1. She should have knew better.
Hey, it's like it just caught me off guard right there. So it hit different though. So it'll be interesting to see if they like implemented something right there. But instead of thinking like that in general though, Well, people should start thinking, instead of trying to implement something to tax the rich more, we should really start thinking about controlling what we can control. Because in all honesty, that's like out of our control. That's not something that we can really do something about unless like different laws are like implemented and stuff like that. Instead of worrying about how to make them pay more, we should be worrying about how we can allow ourselves to pay less. And I think that's what we'll be talking about throughout this entire episode. So I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but I will say that y'all in for a real treat this episode. Like Alex said earlier, this is like one of his passion topics. So y'all finna get the whole spiel. Like, just get y'all minds right.
Yeah. So, I mean, the stuff we finna talk about is like, bro, you're not getting this info in school, bro. And there's a reason you're not gonna get this info in school. And I'm gonna kind of talk about that towards the end of the episode. But bro, this is like, I ain't even trying to like be on the gas or nothing, but this is like, this is gold information that like you, unless you researching it yourself, then you just not gonna come across this. You're not even getting this in college, bro. Like, come on, this is great information, and it's not even like to say nothing about us or put ourselves on a pedestal or nothing. I'm just saying this information, put the information on the pedestal. So, but yeah, I want to take 5 minutes real quick just to kind of talk about the history of the income tax and kind of how we got to where we are today, and then we'll kind of talk about the middle class and limiting the tax burden and all those kind of things and how rich people kind of do that. So as everybody knows, the U.S. formed in 1776, and when it was formed, there weren't any income taxes at the time, right? Because they were actually considered unconstitutional to have a income tax. So they actually, even in the Constitution, it stated that direct taxes are not possible unless directly apportioned. That essentially meant that a state could only implement taxes based on what percentage of the population they accounted for, right? So, for example, if let's say Virginia had 5% of the U.S. census population, then they could only contribute 5% to federal revenue. That was what essentially that meant in the Constitution at that time, right? And you got to remember, at this point, the colonists of the New World or America had just fought a war versus Great Britain about this exact thing, right? About taxes, right? So you can imagine they were very uneasy about having to pay taxes, because that's literally what the American Revolution was fought over, was taxes. So, I mean, obviously that you could imagine why that rule would have been placed in the actual Constitution. So at that point, the country had relied on tariffs and excise taxes for pretty much the next 100 years, or over the next, even beyond the next century, right? They just relied on the tariffs on the imports and exports and the excise taxes on the goods that they were selling. The first income tax didn't actually even come into play until 1862, which was damn near 100 years later. So Abe Lincoln, shout out to him, he needed, obviously I think he was a Union general. He needed to finance the Civil War, so they needed more money, so he implemented the first income tax.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was reading something about this as well, and they said that this really didn't raise a lot of money back then because of the fact that these taxes weren't auto-deducted like they are today. Like, it wasn't directly enforced like how it is today, where they take it out your paycheck before you even get it. It wasn't even like being taken out like that. So it was like we're asking for it, but we're not like we're forcing you to give it. And so I don't know if that's what you read as well, but I was looking into that. I was like, well, yeah, it's not going to be very effective, because if somebody's asking me for my money after I got my paycheck, I'll be like, nah, bro, I work for this. This is mine. I'm not just about to give it up that easy.
That's pretty much how it was. I mean, at that point, the withholdings didn't really come into play until like the almost the mid 1900s, 1940s, right around World War II.
And then just another thing, just to add on to that, though, most, like you said, it's like only 10% that was even really getting taxed at the time. The average income at the time per year was like around $300. And so you're really not even making a real large benefit from this in the grand scheme of things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, that's kind of how it was. And then, so by the time it was like the 1900s, like early 20th century, I mean, there was a huge populist movement going on, populist people's movement. Like, same thing. It was pretty much saying, hey, we need to curtail the power of the corporations and financial institutions because they have too much power right now. This was like early 1900s. So there was, a huge eat the rich, tax the rich mentality sort of thing going on, which kind of led to the 16th Amendment, which was in 1913, when they essentially said that Congress has the power to lay and collect taxes on incomes from whatever source derived without apportionment from among the states. So this was pretty much the opposite of what happened in the Constitution, or what was happening in the Constitution. And then so the 16th Amendment came, and that pretty much was like the introduction of the modern tax system. So in 1913, like the tax bracket, it was a really simple tax bracket. 1% was the lowest rate, 7% was the max rate, and you had to earn like $500,000 to actually be considered in that max rate, and that was only the super wealthy at that time, which was like the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts, Rockefellers, all those times. And so when that happened, the tax code, obviously they needed a tax code, and the tax code was only like 400 pages at that time. So that was like the first draft of the tax code, 400 pages. So, fast forward like 20 years, by the time it was the Great Depression, and the rates, they kind of fluctuated all throughout. Really, I mean, even since like the last 100 years, the rates have fluctuated heavily. At that point, like in the Great Depression rate, it caused an increase, in the lowest rates to 4%, and then the highest rate was 79% at that point. So, yes.
Sorry.
And then
God dang.
Bro, yeah. And the tax code was only 500 pages at that point too. So, I mean, it only went up 100 pages. So, I mean, and then we go into World War II, kind of fast forward into that, and the lowest rate at that point was 23%, and the highest was 94%. 94% was happening on, if you was making 200K or more on income, which, I mean, 200K back then is like, you got to be making, well into the millions now. So
Bro, that is a cooking for anybody making that much.
Yeah,
94%. Like, you go home with 6% of your money, bro.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't even whenever I was like reading about it, I was like, is that right? Like, no, I had to go verify that. But that's dead ass. That's what they were doing.
I seen that too. That's crazy, bro.
Nah, it's crazy, bro. Like, and I mean, then at this point too, that's when they had introduced the withholding system, and that's when that became into play, the withholding system as it is today. So the government needed to get paid their money sooner, so they started withholding taxes. So now the employers would pay a portion of employee salaries directly to the Federal Reserve or the Treasury, and that's literally how it goes today. Your employer contributes a portion, like if let's say you make 60K, your employer, right off the bat, every time you get a paycheck, has to contribute some of that into a Federal Reserve bank, or essentially the Treasury. So that's kind of how that even happens today. And so once that started happening with holdings, people stopped seeing it as, oh, Uncle Sam is taking my money, because now they never saw it in the first place. So what happened then? People kind of became desensitized to the idea of paying taxes, and so they stopped caring as much about taxes as a whole. And so by this point, by World War II, there was a huge jump in the tax code right there. At that point, it jumped from the 500 pages the previous 10 years to 8,000 pages to where it was today, or at that point, 8,000 pages in the 40s.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy, bro. So you said we became desensitized. I'm sure the rich who were getting taxed at 94% were desensitized to it. They were probably the leading cause for why all them pages got added, I'm sure. Yeah. But the sad thing is that you said people got desensitized, so it's like out of sight, out of mind type thing. Once you start taking my money without me really noticing it, I don't really care as much anymore. And it reminds me a lot of how people are today. Like, even in my office, I hear people all the time saying, "Yeah, man, I haven't seen I haven't checked what my paycheck looks like in like the last 5 months." Bro, I look at my paycheck every time I get it. I don't care if it is the same thing. I want to make sure it is, and I want to see where my money is going. And that's why people were shocked when Purdue Pay had happened back when they overpaid us last year, and then they started severely underpaying us in the summer months. People were shocked because all they do is see their new deposit into their bank accounts. They never really go see their paychecks and see if they were getting overpaid in the first place. So now all of a sudden they looking like they just looking like, bro, what happened? Once the summer months come around and they realize that they were getting overpaid all that time. Mm-hmm. People just need to be paying more attention in general, because 7,500 pages got added to the tax code, and people paid less attention to it as a result. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. Like, bro, you should really be paying attention when they add in that many pages over the course of a couple years. Like, bro, something's happening that's going to affect your money big time, and you just like, oh well, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, and by the time it was like 1984, the tax code had grew to 26,000 pages. So, you could see obviously there's big changes happening during this era, like, over the 40 years, big changes were happening. And then over the next 20 years, by 2004, the tax code was 60,000 pages, right? So, I mean, as it is today, it's crazy. The tax code is literally over 77,000 pages today, which is crazy, bro. 77. It's super complex and convoluted that, like, there's like so many theories as to why it's even that long, or there's a lot of speculation as to that. So, but let's kind of talk about that real quick. So why is the number of pages important? Like, why does that matter for you, or why does that matter for really anyone, right? So like we just mentioned, the first huge increase in pages was between like the 30s and the 40s, right? From the Great Depression to the World War II era, right? 500 pages to 8,000 pages. If you look back in history and you see what happened at that point, you could see this was the Great Depression. FDR was the president at the time. He was a super progressive president. So he implemented the New Deal, right? The New Deal was pretty much his whole plan. If y'all remember from 11th grade history, it was his whole plan to get the United States out of the Great Depression, right? He introduced a bunch of new programs and all that. And one of them was the Revenue Act of 1935, which introduced the wealth tax, right? So the wealth tax took up to 75% of the highest incomes, right? So that, I mean, obviously that's a lot of money, 75% of your income going to taxes, right? So wealthy people weren't fine with that. So what did they do? They started using the tax loopholes in the now 8,000 page code to avoid paying it. So, and then obviously, so this is kind of, it becomes like a back and forth kind of thing. So the wealthy people use the tax code to avoid paying it. And then the president introduces another program that essentially revises the tax laws to address the loopholes. And then the wealthy find more loopholes. Tax law gets revised. And the code continues. It just kind of keeps going back and forth, right? And that's kind of essentially how the tax code has grown. Like if you look at the root cause, that's essentially how the tax code has grown to 77,000 pages today. I mean, administration switch, tax codes gets, revised. Even when Obama introduced the Affordable Care Act, that added another couple thousand pages, few thousand pages. So every administration adds thousands of pages or whatever. And depending on if it's, a progressive or more, I guess you can say capitalist administration, it will determine like the kind of codes and stuff that are in the loopholes and stuff or whatever that are getting added to the tax code, right? So that's kind of what happens. But I think the important thing to take from this is that of all those 77,000 pages in the or all those 77,000 plus pages in the tax code, a few of those pages show you what to pay, and all the rest show you pretty much how not to pay, right? So whenever you hear people say that the tax code was built by the rich, that's essentially what that means. That's what they're talking about, right? If the goal of the tax code was to just strictly raise revenue, then it would be simple. But that's not the only goal that it has. It has other goals. And like I said, a lot of people think that, the more convoluted that the tax law becomes, the easier it is to hide kind of who's paying and who isn't paying, right? And I mean, as we're about to talk about, who is paying, right? So it's the middle class. The middle class is the one that's really paying a bulk of the taxes. And not even I wouldn't even say the middle class. I would say certain type of middle class earners, right? So,
yeah. Now, honestly, what kept on hitting home for me was that the rich were the ones who kept finding the loopholes. And I'm just thinking that the whole time, like as pages are getting added, they keep on finding loopholes. But guess what? They're exercising there's the amount of financial literacy that they have. Yeah. Like at the same time, the middle class it's the same tax code for the rich and the middle class or the poor. But who are the ones that's taking advantage of has finding ways to not pay the taxes is the rich. They're the ones who want to keep their money, so they're making sure that they're financially educated and making sure that they get to keep the money that they're making. We can't the tax code can't become increasingly more complex. Well, not really more complex, but it lengthened out to be that long. We have to pay less attention to it. Like as poor and middle class people, we have to pay more attention to the what the tax code is, how it's changing and stuff, because that's going to affect the money that we're getting as a result. Like we want to keep on talking about how we want to implement laws and stuff to tax the rich more and more, but instead we need to take a step back and be like, maybe instead of trying to force somebody else to change, we can just change ourselves and say, okay, let me go look at the tax code, or find somebody who knows the tax code is even a better way to do it, and figure out how I can start saving money myself, or start keeping some of the money that I make instead of paying all of it to somebody else.
Yeah. And look, I'm never going to sit up here and advocate to tell anybody to do anything I'm not going to do. I'm not sitting here and telling anybody to go read the tax code. I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that myself. That's why I said find somebody who knows it and stay.
Yeah,
I know for a fact I'm not finna do that.
Yeah, and just learn about like how, which is what we're finna talk about. How are rich people able to avoid paying taxes, right? And why does the middle class pay the most in taxes? That's the key. That's what you need to learn about, because you don't have to read the tax code to know that. It's really simple, and we're going to talk about it. So let's get into that. I think the first thing, like in order to understand really like why the middle class pays the most in taxes, I think we need to first acknowledge the fact that the most of the middle class doesn't know how the taxes work, right? Mm-hmm. Most people in the middle class just simply assume that if you make a lot of money, that you should pay the most in taxes, right? And that kind of goes back to the thing we talked about earlier with the tax bracket and stuff. But that's not the right mentality, because it's crazy, because like a lot of these people that say that and think that like they hate capitalism, but these are the same people that love their iPhone, they love, Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, and Netflix, right? They love all those kind of things. But you got to understand that those things would not exist in the way they do without capitalism. And a lot of people think capitalism is a dirty word. Capitalism is not a dirty word. Capitalism literally just, I had mentioned this in an episode prior to this a while back. It was just the root of the Latin word capitalism was caput, meaning your head. So it's just saying use your head to survive in a free and open marketplace, which is what we have in the United States. So you got to learn how to use your head to survive. That's essentially what capitalism is, and that's what it allows people to do. So it's funny because I always laugh whenever I see someone tweet, because on Twitter it can show you like what people are tweeting through, and somebody will always say something like "eat the rich," tax the rich, whatever that nonsense they be talking about is, and then you'll click the details and it'll say from Twitter via iPhone. I'm like, bro, that's like, that always makes me laugh. It's like, bro, obviously y'all don't really even know what y'all talking about. Y'all are just following that social media group thing.
Yep. I was just thinking that. But no, I thought about that same thing in church earlier. I was thinking about like how we're all consumers from capitalists. I'm looking around. Everybody has the same type of phone. It's that phone with no buttons on it, and like everything is touchscreen. It's just either an Android or iPhone. Like like you said, when people post on Twitter from Twitter for iPhone and stuff like that, they have like this monopoly on the entire country right now, as far as just consumers and what they're looking for in a product. And I'm thinking to like Apple AirPods, for example. I saw a stat from 2018 that said they control 60% of the global wireless earbud market. Bro, 60%, you're talking about way over half of the entire market is owned by Apple AirPods alone. Then to take it even a step further, if you combine AirPods along with the Apple Watch, as far as like their total revenue that they make throughout the course of a year, they can be their own Fortune 500 company, and that like in the top 300 at that. So they are like truly, like we're true consumers of Apple and just in Apple products in general.
So yeah, that's what it's important. You got to do your own due diligence and learn about taxes, and then kind of form your own opinion. You can't just go along with what other people think. That's the problem with a lot of people in our generation and within society as a whole. It's like, bro, understand that capitalism is just a system, and it's like once you literally learn to take advantage of it, then that's it. Like you once you know it, you don't go back to the other side. So it's like if you don't, you just stay broke. Like seriously, that's the harsh reality of it. If you don't learn it, then you're just gonna stay broken and in the same place. So but I want to talk about that kind of further now. So I think in order to really understand why the middle class pays the most in taxes, you got to understand also how the economy works, right? So just to illustrate it, I think the best way I can illustrate it is just imagine like if there's a new country, right? And let's say you're the president of this new country, And obviously, as a president, you have to provide for the citizens, right? So how are you going to provide food, houses, cars, products? How are you going to provide all that for your citizens, right? So you have two options. So you have option one, right? Option one is you essentially just as the government, you use government funding, however that comes in. You use the government to build, the offices and the factories, et cetera, and all that. And then you employ all the citizens in those offices and factories, and then, build schools, hospitals, and bridges and roads and all those things, like from income that comes from that, right? That's essentially what socialism is. And that's not really effective, right? Because it's not easy, number one, to employ an entire country. That's not really even that practical, just to say, hey, everybody go do this kind of job or whatever, and just kind of give everybody a role in a job. That's not really effective. And plus, I think even a bigger outlying factor is that there's no incentive for citizens to contribute in a socialist society, because it's inconsistent with human behavior, right? People need incentive. So, I mean, if you just pretty much created North Korea if you have a society like that, right? Because, I mean, once that happens, there's not going to be any Facebook, there's not going to be iPhones, there's not going to be Netflix, not going to be none of that kind of stuff because there was nobody to create it. So that's option one. Obviously, that's not a good option. So option two, the other option that you have is to pretty much you allow the citizens that are going to be brave enough to actually, build businesses and start their own businesses. You're going to let them employ the citizens instead of you trying to employ all the citizens, right? So now once you do that, you can essentially tax all those businesses and the people that work in those businesses to build the schools, the bridges and hospitals and all the infrastructure and this kind of stuff that your people need as citizens, right? And that's essentially what capitalism is, right? So knowing that, that only 1% to 2% of your citizens in your country are going to actually be willing to start businesses, right? Because most people aren't going to start businesses. We know that. Most people are employees. So everyone else, all those employees are going to work for those 1% to 2% of citizens that are going to start businesses. So that's essentially why the business owners are going to be the ones that are going to be the wealthiest. And that's also why there are few people that are actually wealthy and most people are poor / middle class, because most people work for the wealthy people. And that's really what that would be. So, I mean, would it be wise for you as the president to increase taxes on those business owners? No, it would not be a smart move for you as the president, because then they're going to close their businesses and be like, I'm out of here, and take them elsewhere. And you're going to be left with unemployed citizens that aren't going to be happy. So the best option is to incentivize business owners to stay by giving them tax breaks so that they can continue to open more businesses and employ more people, so you can collect more taxes from the employees, right? Because you could like tax. The beautiful thing about it, I mean, from that perspective, from the government perspective, is that you can collect taxes on the business. So from the businesses, you get the corporate taxes, and then you collect the employee income taxes on them too. So now everyone wins. You get the citizens are happy. You get business owners that are happy. You get employees that get money. Everybody wins. That's essentially what capitalism is. That's what a capitalistic society is. There's free reign and free enterprise on anything for anybody to go and start a business for profit. And that's how that works. So, I mean, obviously, option two will be the way to go if you were to start your own country in that fictitious example. So yeah, this is really the fundamental reason that wealthy people pay less in taxes than everybody else do. So, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, all of them, Jeff Bezos, they take advantage of these kind of business incentives or the incentives that businesses get. I mean, just listen to what Warren Buffett has said.
My total taxes paid, payroll taxes plus income tax, mine came to 17.7%. The average for the office was 32.9%. There wasn't anybody in the office, from the receptionist on up, that paid as low a tax rate. And I have no tax planning. I don't have an accountant. I don't have tax shelters. I just follow what the U.S. Congress tells me to do.
So the short answer to the question on, how to pay less in taxes is, it's simple. You got to move from the employee side to the business owner. side, which we had talked about in episode 27. So that's kind of what that is, right? But we know that, like I just kind of mentioned, most people aren't willing to do that because it's not easy to be a business owner, right? It's not easy to start a business because you need capital, you need time, you need, to have that that determination to actually, have a successful business. It's not easy. It's a lot of failures. It's a lot of ups and downs in business. You might not see any money, whereas you're an employee, you get a steady paycheck, you get a steady income coming in. But as a business owner, you might not see any money for the first couple of years of your business. You know that there probably won't be a return on your time for for a while, while you're starting a new business. So, that's kind of how that goes. But I mean, there's, alternatives for employees to also invest in well-established business, right? You can buy stocks and invest in other people's businesses because, the income that you get from stocks is also, you pay less in taxes on that, because when you invest in stocks, the government sees that as a contribution to society because you are investing in a company that is contributing to society in some way. So they look at you as that income as, okay, we don't have to take as much of that because you're using that money to further society, right? So, yeah, that's essentially what happens there.
Yep, that's really just playing into the system. Like, instead of being that consumer that you were talking about, just start utilize your money to make money, or just do things that the government wants you to do in order to get those tax breaks. Instead of like binging Netflix every day, you can be buying Netflix stocks. Instead of trying to save up to finance this new iPhone 12 coming out later this year, you could be buying up Apple stock. We talked about how they have a whole monopoly on the whole country, so that'll probably be a good start to get into in general. I would say do your due diligence and make sure that you know what you're doing when you invest in stocks. But that's something good to get into. Even furthermore, like if you have money, you can invest into somebody who's doing real estate. Like, I'm like the thing in real estate sense. I know we always do real estate and stuff like that, or we always talk about it at least.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the investor himself. You can be the one that's investing in somebody else who's doing the actual work. Like we mentioned before about the venture capital that we have. If people have money that they want to invest, because we're the ones that's going to be doing all the work. Somebody who just has money that just wants to be a private investor, we're still available for that as well. Like, that's just something. I mean, that's a free plug and stuff, but that's like something that's like very feasible. Something that you can do in order to get those tax incentives, because you won't be taxed the same as you will if you're just making this W-2 employee job money, like getting those W-2 paychecks. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, just don't always be a consumer. You need to, when you start providing, you'll find that you get more out of it. Like, more gets returned back to you with less taxes.
Exactly. And that's, understand, I mean, we're not saying that you have to go be a business owner. You have to be an investor, because there are ways to limit your tax burden as an employee, as I'll kind of talk about a couple. Because, I mean, you got to understand that taxes are just an incentive system. It's not necessarily to say, hey, you do this, so you have to pay this amount of taxes. It's not even like that. It's like, it's an incentive. It doesn't matter what you do. It's an incentive. And you're incentivized to do things by saying, hey, we won't take as much of your income if you do these certain things that the government wants you to do, right? Because when you do things that the government can't do, you're doing things that they want you to do, essentially, right? So when you're providing jobs, you're providing housing, you're providing food, they're going to give you tax breaks for those things, because those are things that they can't really do themselves. I mean, they can, but not obviously. It can be a lot more effective if people are doing it for themselves and as free enterprise as such, like it is in a society as we have today. Because when you're an employee, you're essentially, I mean, really everybody's doesn't matter what, how you earn income, but everybody is a business partner with the government. It's just a matter of how much they're going to take from you. It's depending on what you do, right? But as an employee, you're not, when you earn income as an employee, that's not necessarily contributing, or you're not doing anything that the government couldn't do themselves, essentially, or you're not contributing in a way to society that the government essentially wants. And like I said, there are ways to decrease your tax burden. But generally speaking, in terms of like the income, they aren't going to necessarily give you many benefits, because it's just like, bro, that's, what do you, how are you contributing?
Right.
It's not really. What are you doing different than what anybody else is doing? That's essentially what it is, right? Understand that the government, they're never going to substantially tax the wealthy because they need what they provide for society. So the rich people will always pay less in taxes. Like that's just facts. Like the wealthy will always, doesn't matter, they're always going to pay less in taxes. What the government will do, they'll tax those high, income salary earners. Those are the people that. So whenever you hear someone say, tax the rich and all that, those are the people that are going to get taxed. It's not going to be the mega rich. It's not going to be the Bezos and the Zuckerbergs and the Musks. It's not going to be in the, Robert Smiths. It's not going to be them. It's going to be the people that are the doctors and the engineers and the lawyers. Those are the people that are going to be getting taxed the most.
You and me.
Taxed. Like they cooking over there, bro. But that's how it goes. Most of the taxes are going to be paid by the people with the top 10% of salary. It's not going to be the ones that earn the millions and the billions, because those people are doing too much for society. As much as people might hate to hear that, it's just the facts, bro. Like, and I hope y'all are like really beginning to see how and why the school system teaches students how to be employees and not business owners, right? Because the government needs their future business partners as much as, it might, as morbid as it might sound, or as cynical as it might sound, the government needs those future business partners, because they know that if they were to teach people how to do this, then people are going to start moving over there, and they don't want people to move over there because they need people to take income tax from.
Exactly. So,
look, that's just the way it goes. That's why they call it the 1% and the 2%. That's why those people are called the 1%, because it's not everybody's going to do that. Because I mean, it's a whole conspiracy thing kind of going. And I genuinely believe that's the reason, like, they don't teach financial literacy and all these. That's why I said, bro, this information that you're getting is not taught in schools, colleges. I mean, I'm sure you can find a college class or something that talks about this, but like in the perspective that we're providing it to, like, literally benefit your life and you not pay any taxes, like, bro, this is information is like gold. Like, it's literally giving you the blueprint on, financial advancement.
I feel you 1,000%, man. Because I'm thinking it's like a business decision almost for the government. It's like either we can teach everyone how to get this money, and then we risk having not how to get this money, but talking about like how to benefit from taxes, like become business owners and stuff. And then you risk having like too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Or you can just keep the elite, the few, and keep the system the way it is by keeping all the poor middle class out the loop. And pretty much keeping it the way it is. That way you keep my business partner and keep on having somebody to tax. Because if all the chiefs if everybody's becoming chiefs, you don't have anybody that's that's available to tax with using income tax, or using the current system at least. But this is why last week we were talking about how the internet is just so pivotal in this day and age, because if you don't use it now, it's going to become more restricted. And why? All this information that we're telling you today is all coming directly from the internet. Like, we've learned this stuff by utilizing the internet, and this is free for anybody to use. And if you're not taking advantage of it right now, I promise you, you are truly missing out, because this is like almost a direct threat to the current system. If people are actually utilizing to its full potential, the government will be in for a rude awakening, because they're going to look up and have freaking 90% Chiefs, 10% Indians. Like, oh shoot, we need to change up the whole system now. What's going on?
I was thinking that earlier. I was like, dang, bro, because like the information that we're given, I was like, dang, I wonder if someone from the IRS, obviously this is like a very satire kind of example, but I was like, if someone from the IRS or something was listening and they was like, dang, we gotta do something about this. We can't have this giving out this information. Just saying, like, bro, what if they just like assassinated us or something?
Bro, just simply to change the internet. Why we gotta be gone?
I'm just saying, bro, like,
so cynical, bro.
I'm just saying, like, it could be something crazy, like, dang, like I don't know, bro. I'm just saying this information is too valuable, like, to not take advantage of, and it's like all out there. So it's just crazy that more people don't know. Well, it's not really that crazy. It's a lot of work, and most people don't like doing work. So, that kind of makes sense. But that's essentially what we're saying. Like, bro, income that you earn as an employee, the point we're trying to make is that income that you earn as an employee versus income earned as a business owner versus investor is a lot different, right? Because I mean, let's say if you earn 100K as a lawyer, I talked about the tax brackets earlier. You're going to fall in that 24% marginal tax rate. But your effective tax rate, which I kind of mentioned earlier, was the taxes you pay versus over the income you earn, is going to be actually 15.25% based off of that entire all the tax brackets that you fall into. So you pay in pretty much 15.25% of your income in taxes, right? Obviously, now this is what I mentioned earlier. W-2 earners and stuff, they do have deductions that they can take advantage of. Obviously, they have, you can take advantage of the mortgage interest deduction. You can claim your dependents. You can take advantage of 401k contributions. You get deductions for that. So all of those are, itemized deductions that you can take advantage of, or you just have your standard deductions that you can take advantage of. I think it was 12,000 for 2020 for a single person. You have your standard deduction. So that it's very limited though. You don't have much, right? There are not many deductions you can. The reason the government gives you something like 401k is because whenever you contribute to your 401k, you are doing, like I said, taxes are an incentive system. When you contribute to your 401k, you're doing something the government wants you to do because now they don't have to take care of you when you retire. So they're saying, oh, you'll contribute to your 401k? Cool. We'll give you a tax break for that, right? So, oh, you'll take care of your kids? Cool. We'll give you a tax break for that. Oh, you going to buy a house? Oh, cool. We'll give you a tax break from that in the form of mortgage interest deduction, right? So you're doing things the government wants you to do. So that's it's still limited though, right? But you have a few, but it's limited. But let's look. I mean, if you earn 100K, let's say you flip a house in 6 months, you earn 100K. Yes, you're an investor, but you're essentially going to pay the same amount in taxes due to the short-term capital gains. Short-term capital gains are anything that's less than a year, or any asset you sell after holding for less than a year, right? So if you flip a house and you sell it within a year, you're going to pay normal taxes. So you're still going to pay your 15.25% effective tax rate because that 100K falls in that same 24% marginal tax bracket because it is short-term capital gains. Now, the difference here is that you can deduct many more things than you can as an employee, right? You can deduct all the expenses to flip the house, all the renovation costs, essentially deduct that. You can deduct all your mileage, the gas, the mortgage interest on the loan if you had a loan on it. So your effective tax rate can essentially be zero, right? So you can limit it a lot further, all the way to zero or even negative, depending on how many deductions you had, right? And then that's like kind of, as an investor, right? There's a lot of tax benefits you can take advantage of there. But yeah, I mean, if you look at it from a business owner perspective too, let's say you make that same 100K, I don't know, let's say you have a vending machine company. Now your tax rate drops just right off the bat. Instead of you paying 24%, your tax rate drops to straight 21% as the corporate tax rate. And it used to be 35 and it dropped to 21. That's thanks to y'all's president that happened. But I mean, even then you can deduct a bunch of expenses, right? You have the marketing expenses, travel expenses, meals, all that. You can, deduct all of that from your income, your taxable income, right? And even I think one of the craziest deductions that you have available or that business owners have available is the depreciation. IRS section 179 lets you deduct machinery or deduct the useful life of any machinery, right? So let's say you buy a vending machine for, I don't know, $2,000, right? In your vending machine business, then let's say it has a useful life of, the government will say 5 years, right? So you can deduct, what was that, $400 a year off of your tax burden every year just from depreciation alone. So that's on a small scale. You're talking a $2,000 vending machine, but we're talking $70,000 equipment truck or anything. That's a lot more. You're going to have a lot less tax liability because you can deduct that over that same amount of time. So your effective tax rate can be zero or negative here. So I mean, in all those situations, the difference between all of those is really the number of deductions available. Most business expenses are essentially tax write-offs. So that's why a lot of businesses can pay nothing in taxes because they can literally write everything off. Big businesses get the most tax breaks, right? I mean, you look at Elon Musk, he has obviously he's big on SpaceX and Tesla and all that, and he gets a lot of research and development tax breaks. I had read that he had 280 million in tax credits just I think in the last year or so. And then Amazon, I mean, obviously everyone knows Amazon. They made billions of dollars in profits, and they had a $129 million tax rebate. They didn't pay anything in taxes. So, I mean, there's a bunch of businesses get, the bulk of those tax rebates, right? And that's, I mean, like I said earlier, they're contributing to society in that way. So, and I think another thing to mention real quick is the fact that debt can be used to lower your tax burden too. Debt is like one of the craziest, like that whole like phenomenon of how you can use debt to lower your tax burden is crazy. Because I mean, as a business, big businesses consider debt as an asset, right? It's good debt because they're taking out the debt to finance assets, right? And so what debt does, it allows you to, number one, scale your income, and also number two, decrease your tax liability, right? Because let's say you own a real estate investment company and you buy an apartment complex with debt, right? $5 million apartment complex, you finance it with someone else's money. So you have debt on it, right? You can use the rental income to pay down the debt. So you're going to pay down that debt that you owe, and then you can deduct the interest payments on that debt from your taxable income. So that's almost in a way, eliminating the interest you're going to be paying, right? Because you're just taking it off of your tax rate. So you're essentially, instead of paying it here, you're taking it out somewhere. So you might pay it, but you're taking it out somewhere else, which isn't in your taxes, right? And then on top of that too, I mean, the property is going to be appreciating with the bank's money or whoever financed it, and they're not going to be getting any of it, right? So you get to see the value in the appreciation, plus you get to benefit from the amortization. So that loan is getting paid down and you're getting the equity in the property or whatever the case may be, right? And that's not even the craziest thing. The craziest part is the depreciation deduction. Depreciation is it's like, I don't know, when I learned about this, I was fascinated just because of the fact, like, bro, this is insane that this is actually, you can actually do this, right? So IRS publication 527, yes, I looked it up and I read it. IRS publication 527, right? So that essentially allows you, I talked about section 179 earlier. That was for machinery and stuff. You can deduct useful life, but you can do the same thing with real estate because it's essentially an expense. If something is losing value, it's an expense because that's money out the door. So it's an expense. So it's right that they will let you deduct it, right? So, okay, this is a little bit more advanced, but in your your ledger or your what is the word? Income statement and balance sheet. If your depreciation is actually an income and an expense, right? So number one, it's a deduction that's going to lower your tax bill. So that's why it's income, because it's going to resultantly increase your cash flow. So it's a form of income in that way, right? But it's no money out of your pocket either. So it's an expense because you can deduct it out. It's an expense because you can deduct it out and take it out as a business expense, but you're not necessarily losing that money. So it's crazy because it's kind of like phantom income, because it's like, it's money that's not really there. Seriously, that's what it's actually called. Like in the world of, like, that's what they actually call it. Robert Kiyosaki calls it phantom income. Mm-hmm. So it's like, he's the one that taught me about it, or he's the one I learned it from.
You had a one-on-one conversation with him. He was teaching you. He taught you.
Shoot, that's what I felt like. I was like, damn, bro, tell me more. But like, I mean, think about it. I said earlier, if you had a $5 million apartment complex, right, and let's say you owe $150,000 in taxes, what depreciation does essentially is you take the value of the property that you bought it for, or you take the price that you bought the property for, subtract the value of the land, and you have to subtract. Okay, I'll say this. So you subtract the value of the land, and you can depreciate that number over, if it's a commercial property, over 39 years, because that's what the IRS says the useful life of that property is, right? 39 years. You have to take the land out because obviously land isn't depreciating, right? Like the value of the land isn't going to
asset itself.
Yes. So it's a fiscal structure that's actually losing, it's getting weaker, it's deteriorating. So it's actually losing value in a way. So you can take that value, you subtract the land, and you divide that by 39. You take that number, you can take that away from your income every year. So you subtract I mean, if you do $5 million divided by 39 is like 128,000. You take that from 150,000, you essentially eliminated almost all of your tax burden. And so now you're only paying taxes on, and this is just for the depreciation. You have the other expenses too. So now you take 128,000 from 130, you have what is that? 22,000 that you only have to pay taxes on. And then you have the other deductions. You can see how now business owners don't pay anything in taxes. It's crazy because like depreciation is the craziest thing. 39 years for commercial and 27 and a half years for residential. So that's one of the, like, it's an amazing strategy. And it's like, bro, this is crazy that you can actually do this. Phantom income.
I know everybody's sitting here blown away over the last 20 minutes that this dude just gave on this spiel of how business owners take advantage of taxes. So I want y'all just to go ahead and bookmark the last 20 minutes. Probably listen to it at least 5 more times so y'all can really understand everything that was just happening. I want to just get like a low level real world example though. But no, it was such good information. I really want y'all to like take heed to everything he just said, because bro, you're not learning that anywhere. I promise you're not gonna hear any of that in no school, no college, no nothing. Like, oh my god, so much good stuff in there. It was crazy. But just like thinking on a simple level, like with our house tax though in general, like for mine in particular, my mortgage has gotten paid down about $3,000 since I've been living here, and that's been about a year and a couple of months. By the time I move out, it'll be 2 years. I plan on selling it, so within that time, it's actually appreciated by like $30K since I bought it. So the mortgage has been paid down by $3,000. It's appreciated by $30,000. I've been able to take advantage of depreciation, like you were talking about, the depreciation deductions on my taxes every year. That's been 2 years since I've been living here. I've taken advantage of that. When I sell it, I get to get the capital gains tax free, because that's just one of the tax loopholes with real estate. If you live in a house for 2 years and sell it within 5 years of first owning it, you get to take the capital gains tax free. So I'm looking at around at least a $20,000 profit because of the appreciation, and I've taken advantage of benefits along the way. Like, bro, it's just compounding on itself. And all I spent was $10,000 to get into it. I put a 5% down payment, closing costs, and after that, it's paying for itself, and I'm making benefits on it as a result. And this all stems from just understanding how to take advantage of tax incentives that the government already has out there. It's just about you taking advantage of them instead of crying about, oh, taxes are unfair, the rich should be taxed the most.
Yeah, bro. That's 100% right. And bro, Marlon did that as he's a college student, bro. Like, that's a grad student and he's just doing that, bro. Like, it's something, bro, it's there for the taking, bro. It don't matter. Like, I don't want to hear no excuses, bro. For real. Like, I don't want to hear no excuses because y'all getting the information. So it's like, bro, just take action, bro, and do something about it. I mean, I'm gonna be real. If you gonna listen to this and not do nothing, then I mean, what is it?
It's a good bedtime story, then.
Right? Hope you listen to this right before you go to bed. No. I'm gonna take action. So
for sure.
If y'all do or not, then that's on y'all. But I will. So we're gonna kind of wrap this up here in a minute. But the last thing I kind of do want to talk about is the fact that, I mean, anyone can really take advantage of this, right? It doesn't matter how you earn your income. Even if you're an employee, you can invest and get tax breaks, right? I mean, I talked about even as if you invest into your 401k, you get tax breaks off of that. So that's one way you can literally do this. But even further, if you take control and you actually invest in something that is better than a 401k, then you can take real advantage of this, right? Because I mean, like I said earlier, if you could flip a house and you can either, you're going to pay the long-term capital gains or the short-term capital gains, depending on how long it takes. But you can, take the profits and reinvest it into another property and completely avoid paying taxes completely. Because if you take the profits and reinvest it, you don't have to pay any taxes on that. So you essentially convert taxes into equity. Like, that's literally free wealth that you're getting, because you would have had to pay the taxes anyway. So, I mean, you take it and convert it into equity. For me, I think the best strategy, in my opinion, is to start a business. I mean, don't even have to be a major business, any business. Generate any sort of profit and take that income from the business and use that to, subsidize your investments and pay for your investments. Because now what you can do is you take advantage of the corporate and the investor tax breaks, right? So now you're getting the best of both worlds. That's the McDonald's formula straight up. Like, I mean, McDonald's, everybody thinks that they are in burger business, but they're not, right? Because what happens is that McDonald's is like they just a franchise. It's just like a franchise, right? So other people essentially own and operate every McDonald's store you see. McDonald's doesn't own the stores that you see. They're kind of just like, McDonald's is like a landlord, really, because what happens is they're going to take a percentage of the income from the franchisee for the burgers and stuff, because the franchisee agrees to use their formulas and their, brand and all of that to sell burgers. And they'll take a percentage of that income, and McDonald's is going to use that income now to buy real estate and rent more land to more franchisees. So McDonald's is in the real estate game. They're not in the burger game. I think we talked about that before, but that's like the ultimate formula, and that's what I'm talking about. That's the formula that's like, that is the way to go, and that's what I'm gonna teach my kids. That is like the key to financial success. I guarantee you, like, bro, because if you can eliminate your taxes and you can like limit your tax burden, I mean, taxes is your largest expense, everyone's largest expense. So if you can find a way to, like, it's like we would talk about house hacking and eliminating your largest expense in form of living. Imagine eliminating your taxes too. That's crazy. And that's literally, what we kind of talked about.
Man, like I said, when we first started this episode, this is one of Alex's favorite topics. So we were going to get super into the weeds, but it was very likely, and it actually did happen. So I want y'all to bookmark this entire episode. Like, if y'all are serious about like taking control of your financial destiny, it's going to be this is like one of the pivotal ways that you are able to like supercharge your way to saving all the money that you make in order to like be able to keep more of your money at the end of the day. Like, this information is just, you're not going to find this information anywhere else. And honestly, the reason that people don't take advantage of taxes, like just in general, is because they don't understand them. Excuse me, they don't understand them. It's just like when you first see algebra or first see calculus. Bro, it's like a new language at first. It's like, bro, I'm never going to understand that. I don't even want to bother with it. But honestly, once you start using it or start learning it more and more, start actually making an effort to learn about it, it becomes easier over time. And once something becomes easier, you then see that where you can apply it to your own life, where it can become applicable. It's like with algebra actually is used plenty in real world. Like, engineers see it all the time. Normal everyday people will never really understand it. But the things that we're making, that engineers create, is heavily uses algebra, calculus, all of that stuff. So once you actually understand like how taxes work, you can really start applying them to your life, and it just make a world of difference for you. Take advantage of this episode. This episode probably was one of our longest ones, but it is chock full of information, and y'all definitely need to take heed to it if y'all trying to make a difference for y'all life, bro. I know I will.
Yeah. Hey, so shout out to you if you still listen to this. But yeah, that's it for this episode of the Money Monopolizers podcast. New episodes will be released every Thursday and will be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search Money Monopolizers wherever you listen to podcasts. We hope you learned something of value today. If you did, we'd appreciate it if you rated it 5 stars and left us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find out more info about us on Twitter at The Monopolizers or on IG at Money Monopolizers. We post informative content on there that'll keep you engaged. So check that out and share those posts. But until then, we're out of here.
You've been listening to the Money Monopolizers podcast, helping you take control of your financial destiny. To learn more about how you can be in control of your money, visit moneymonopolizers.com. We'll catch you next time when Alex and Marlon share more personal finance and wealth creation tips with you. Now it's time to take action.